Okay, so welcome to part 3 of quilting in the hoop with applique. And I'm trying this new technique where we just keep adding on with no real plan of where we're going with our quilt, but we keep adding on a top and a back, right sides together, and then flip it over. And then if we have to add more batting, we do so, but that wonderful girl from Stephen Bland's group told me, I still don't know her name, when you do add the batting, make sure that when you cut the batting to butt it up to the next batting, make sure that when you butt them up, pretend this is batting, when you butt them up, this is not in a seam where the top and the back are. That way you'll prevent that bending effect that happens when you have all of them meeting in the same spot. On the first 2 videos in this series, I stitched out the applique on this yellow block. And then I kept going back and forth on what I wanted to do next. Do I want to stitch the regular nested block below that? Or do I want to stitch out the other applique? Well, I decided to stitch out the other applique. So this is only an applique here. And so there's nothing under here. There's no quilting under here or anything. Just the applique is stitched on. Then after I did that, I had to make a decision. Do I want to quilt, actually do this quilting? Do I want to do this quilting on here? Which I decided, yes, I would do. So this is quilted, so you can see it under there. So this whole thing is quilted. And then I had to make another decision. Do I want to quilt this nested block underneath this one? Or do I want to cut out the hole in my digitizing program for this applique and redigitize it with this upside down hole, because of course my nested block is not made to be flipped, it's just one directional. So since I flipped this applique, I couldn't use this template. I had to make a new one. Well, I decided to go ahead and make a new template before I stitched this, and that was the wrong move because, yeah, I stitched this, it's done for, you know, and I did want it to be in the middle of the block, so that's okay. The only thing I did was waste time cutting the hole out. Because as you can see, this design is placed correctly. Now, I always put the ghost file on my future stitch out, which is down here. And this is the ghost file. It has the little ghosts in it. And so I line up the ghosts with the previous stitch out. And this is the previous stitch out. Now, I didn't want to waste vinyl and print out another template of this. Normally, this one up here would be a clear sew out or print out of not the ghost, but of the actual design. Both of these have ghosts on them. I don't have one readily available. But you wouldn't see the ghosts. You would just see the design, and I'd put that over it so I could see what's going on. So I put that down first over the previous design. In this case, since I have the applique, I just use this paper and cut around it just because I want to, have my window there for the applique. So it worked out okay. And like I said, it's so forgiving. The only problem is you like to line up your vertical crosshair with the rest of, with the future vertical crosshair. So since mine isn't coming down that far, maybe I should have left this in the paper. I shouldn't have cut this. But, I just took my ruler and lined it up that way. And so I lined it up here. And then I made sure, I really can't see, but I made sure that this crosshair here was on the same line. And it's kind of on the same line. And more importantly, I wanted to make sure that this here was lining up. Now up here, this line and this seam, this line here, this 1/4 inch line comes right into this seam. But down here it doesn't. This 1/4 inch is in too much. So if I scooted that over to be the same as this one, then my crosshair is not really lined up with the crosshair up here. But that's okay because this is a forgiving design. So more importantly, I wanted, this is the box that I drew around the design. This box is the exact width of the design. But I wanted this vertical line of the box to line up with this seam, have the same distance. And it kind of does. I'm noticing now that maybe I could have slanted it a hair. But, it just depends on how OCD you want to be. So I'm going to leave it. So I'm just kind of cutting the difference. So I taped this down, and I made sure when I laid it down, not only did I look at my crosshairs, but I looked at this ghost. This ghost has to nest with this previous design. And remember, if it were clear, I would see this stitching down here. I know you can't see it, but I can move that away and see that it is lined up with my stitching. I only have this on here also because just for your benefit to see, and for the crosshair. So this is lined up, but you can see the ghost over here for this design is way down here, and my design is way up here. So I have to redo this hole. So I have to cut this hole. If I lift up this template, if I match up the ghost hair now, right here, ghost hair. If I line that up, line up this crosshair with that one, and line up this ghost with that one, you can see kind of where this has to be cut. So now how am I going to do that? Am I just going to, get something in there and trace that and see where this needs to be cut? I'm using my fingernail now. That's the edge of the satin. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect because the design is so forgiving. And you can see it's even off center. So this swirl is going to be off center. So how would I do this going forward if I want to continue with this method? I have to think about this. You know, because if you recall, I had decided I'm just going to make a patch and put my appliques on. And just make this throughout. And I guess you could use all kind of tools to do this. I don't know. So I'll say, okay, well, I have to cut this out 1/4 inch from center, and then I have to end my triangle. Here's my grids. These are 10 mils each. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, at about 60. 60 down from the top. I can't see the center here. So I'm doing mils and inches. That's going to be a pain. So I'm going to think about this and think of a better way to place my other designs, I guess. I guess that wouldn't be bad, but, you know, since we do have a lot of forgiveness. But at any rate, my whole plan of stitching this next is no more. So I'm going to stitch this out right where it's at, and then I have to redigitize this hole. And then from there, I'll just keep placing this design. And I really should get another clear template going without the ghost, just so I have it. I'll have to rummage through my vinyl. So I'll be back to stitch this. So I started thinking about it for going forward as far as tracing out where I would cut my hole. If I just used the regular, this is another printed version of the nest, just the regular nested block. If I slipped it under here and lined it up, lined up my cross here and lined this up. Maybe tape it temporarily. Maybe what I could do is take a ruler and do the same thing I was doing before, but with the ruler. Now, if this were a applique that, you know, was irregular, this would be difficult. But I have this ruler now right on the edge of the satin, and I could just draw a line and then do the same thing over here. So that would be the center of my pentagon. And that's really all I need, is where is the center of my pentagon, and then I'll just move it in my software and I'll cut my hole there. So that center is at, you know, at this coordinate right here, which from 0, it's 10, 20, 30, 40. So 40 up from 0. That's the y direction, but in an x direction it's negative, so it's to the left of 0 here. So that's not 10, that's about 8, negative 8. So I would say, okay, my coordinate here is negative 8, 10, 20, 30, 40. Oops. My coordinate is negative 8, comma, 40. You know, that wouldn't be hard. For me, it wouldn't be hard because I'm used to doing that. But for anybody else, you know, it's kind of a pain. I just really like the idea of sewing in the applique first. I just think it looks so nice. It's just so nice. So I'm going to keep working on that, and maybe I can come up with a better idea. And we always have Stephen Bland's idea of just using steam a seam and you're done. He doesn't even stitch it down. Or I can just stitch it down. I can, you know, bring in a outline of my design just inside the satin and then trace that shape with my fast forward button on my machine and make sure I'm staying within the satin. Now this one, my design here comes so close to the satin that would have been, I would have had to been really good to do that, but of course I'm getting better and better at that. So especially since you can just drop your needle and make sure for this shape. So there's always that, but then of course if you stitch your patch on just inside like that, then the satin part is sticking up a little, and I like the fact that this satin is stitched down. I just like it. It looks so great. And I also thought about going over the satin with a single stitch just to make it stronger, because it's going to get, you know, if it's a quilt, it's going to get washed a lot. And because, you know, that's what they do with patches. So I thought about that too. And if I do it that way, then I could just stitch in the center of the satin and it wouldn't look as bad. Especially if I did that blanket stitch again. But I don't know how I feel about that. So we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to take this two-sided tape and put it on the back of this template. Remember, since I'm hooping, I have to use the template where I have the sides folded up and the other sides slightly cut so that they fit inside my inner, so this fits inside my inner ring. So I'm going to use this really sticky double-sided tape. I don't even need that much. I'm going to put here and here on the top corners of this template. And then I'm going to make it less sticky so it doesn't stick too hard to my fabric with flannel. 3 times. Okay. I'll line up this crosshair with this crosshair. I actually put this the wrong way. I should have put it vertically over here so it doesn't stick to the template, because I'll be taking this off. So 1 second, let me redo this. So I decided for the template I'd use this 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape, and I would just put it in the top 2 corners outside of this outside line, so there, and I already peeled off this one. So, and then for the template that's on the design on the clear plastic, I'll use the 1/4 inch double-sided tape. Because if I leave the Scotch tape on here, it's going to get hooped and then I won't be able to take the template off. So I already taped this corner, and I'm just going to tape the other corner. And I'm going to tape it, you know, inside the box. Okay. So I'm satisfied that that'll stick. I mean, should I put one in the center? I don't know. I mean, I probably could, just for good luck, right? So I have to take these off anyways. So that's down pretty good. Okay, so now we're going to slide this template, or not slide, but place this template on. And I've got double-sided tape here in the center and then there on the outer boundaries of this grid, because I know that my box is within the boundaries of that grid. So this tape will not interfere with this template that's already down. And this template is only taped here, here, and here with double-sided tape. So I'll line up my crosshairs. And I'll stick it down there and there. And I'll take my top hoop now. My arrow's pointing up. And this has double-sided tape here and here to stick to the fabric. And I made it like a little less sticky. So I'm going to line up these notches with the crosshair, and then the center notches, the centers with the vertical crosshair. And I don't have to be exactly perfect because I'm going to check for center and rotation when I get to the machine. So now that that's stuck down, and the fabric, it's not that sticky. Lost its stick already. Got a little bit there, but it seems to have lost it over here. So we're going to just try and see, and if I hook crookedly, that would be good because that'll be good for the lesson. So I'm going to take the bottom ring and slip it under, making sure my backing fabric is smooth. And remember, a lot of this, normally you would be doing this method right on the edge, so it would be easy. But since this is my first piece and I made it larger, just because I didn't feel like cutting my batting, it's you know, it's a little more cumbersome, but it's not bad. There isn't much fabric here that I have to mess with. So I'm going to take my bottom ring, I can feel it here, push it. So I'm kind of pushing on the fabric. So now I can feel that they're lined up. Here, and I'm going to kind of push down and see where I'm at. Okay. So I'm in down there, pushing again on the fabric. So I'm not pushing it like all the way down. And then up here, I'm going to see if I can smooth that out a little bit. And oh, the other one, bottom one came out. I got to keep my hand in the corner. Down there. Usually you have to walk yourself around, so this would be the third corner here. And there. And now it's in. Now, off camera, I loosened the hoop about 3 more turns. Before I recess this hoop, let me see how tight I have this. I think it's good. I mean, I can turn it so it's not super duper tight. I don't want to stretch my fabric or anything. My crosshair still looks okay. I'm a little off over here, but that's good because then we can rotate it. So, let me just check it one more time before I recess the hoop. I gave it a quarter turn. I just couldn't resist. Okay. So now I'm going to recess the hoop before I pull this out, because this is in there kind of tight and I can mess things up. So I'm going to take this corner and recess it. And when you recess it on these hoops, you know you went far enough when it's flush, when this inner ring is flush with the outer ring. That's how you know you've recessed it about that 1/8 of an inch that we're supposed to recess our hoops. So that looks good. And usually when you recess it, it gets loose, and that's when you're like, should I tighten it some more? I gave it an 1/8 of an inch turn. Since this is just a quilting design, and I didn't really over tighten it, I think we're fine. Usually on a heavy design or a dense design, you don't want to do that once it's hooped. Also, you might get hoop burn if you make it too tight, and so on. So now that it's hooped and recessed, I'm going to grab this from the bottom, and I know this is kind of tight, but it's not bad. I trimmed it up a little more, and I know it's stuck there, and in the center, and so I should be good now. So now this design didn't move, so this is where this has to stitch. Possibly I hooped crookedly. That's okay. We'll go to the machine and fix that. Now, remember in my previous video I said, oh, maybe I'll flip the design, or I'm sorry, yes, flip the design and then turn this around so that I'm just worried about the edge. And I said, oh, I would cut my batting. Well, I didn't. So I have this bulk to put into the arm, but I'm hoping I'll be okay. We'll see. So this has already been quilted, so the backing is attached there. That's the only place it's attached. I didn't do any basting or anything. So I'm going to just put this over until I get most of it in, or most of it over, I should say. And then, of course, since I have to hook up the arms, I have to tuck this down. And see, that's the issue with the tubular machines. Unless I float this on top, this is the issue I have. This, you know, normally you can let things hang and stuff because they aren't sticking out back here, but because I'm hooping, you know. So I'll do this side now, kind of push it under. I have a lot more over here, so I don't know if I'm going to get this. I may have to jump ship here. Okay, so I've got it in halfway. I'm going to see how I'm doing. And so far everything is clear. Let's see if I can get it in all the way. We're almost there. And I thought about getting the dime hoop, and but just, she has the bottom ring on, you know, she has the steel part here in the arms, but she has the magnetic ring on the bottom. Well, that doesn't help us for quilting in the hoop on a tubular machine. We need for that magnetic hoop to be on top. And I need to find out if that magnetic hoop will adhere to the top. So, I mean, the way she has it advertised, it looks just like a regular hoop with the arms, you know, attached like this, and the other ring on the bottom. So if her bottom ring will magnetize to the top of that steel, I can't imagine it wouldn't, then I would consider getting that and floating it. However, her system is flat. Okay, these are all flat. And you think, oh, that's great. Well, I think Brother and Janome know better, because theirs are both, you know, curved. And I think that holds better. But Appliques aren't made for the Mb4, and the Brother one is too expensive to experiment with, even though I kind of think it would work. I'd love to ask a dealer to try it, but of course they won't, you know. So I'm feeling all down. Everything is clear. So I really wouldn't want to do much more than that. So that's about maybe 12 inches back there. Let's see. Should get a tape measure instead of this hard. That's about 12 inches. So I wouldn't go any more than that with hooping. So when I start to do this part down here, with all this batting I have, I may not be able to get it all in there. So I may have to consider cutting and deciding which way I want to go. But we'll see when I get there. So let's proceed then and put this on the table. The excess. I could probably let it hang. It's not going to hurt anything. But I'll go ahead and put it on this table. Now remember, this table has to be 4 inches from the edge of the hoop. So it's a little close now. So my table is curved. So from here to there, I mean, I'm fine. I'm sure I'm fine right there. It's not going to hit. So I'll grab my batting. That's probably going to end up getting cut off. Or I'll just, and look at, I did it in the center of the batting. And I'm going to give it a little bit of slack here. Maybe move it out a little bit. Okay. So now let's go to the screen, and I'm going to try to get in closer. One sec. So that's about as close as I can get and not have too much glare, and still get both the screen and there'll be less glare when I take this off, but then it's just stitching. So, but at any rate, so I brought up the design, and I'm going to go ahead and save the design to the RCS unit, but I'm going to assign the colors first. So to do that, we hit this arrow, and I'm stitching with needle number 1. And it already says needle number 1. This is the crosshair, of course, and we want to put a stop on the crosshair. And we'll go down to the next color. Needle number 2 is stitching the design, and we want it to be needle number 1 because that's where my beige thread is, and I don't have to worry about a stop because that's the end of the design. Now at the end of this design, it's going to make a long jump stitch, I believe up here. It'll go from here to there, a long jump, and then it'll trim. So then I can bury that long thread. That was the one thing I forgot to do on the last design. So that's good. So we're going to hit the arrow here to go back. Go back again. We're on the Ready to Sew screen. We're going to save it in the RCS just in case we need to X out and come back in. And here's the RCS up here. Because remember, the RCS saves it with the color assignments. So this is going to be my M1 rename, because that's my hoop, my M1 swirl. Oops, that should be a W. This garbage can gets rid of that. Swirl. Whoops. I'm not right-handed. And this is no backtrack. N-O backtrack. Meaning it just stitches one. It doesn't stitch over itself. I have another design that stitches over itself. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll say okay. And then you have to say okay again, because if you just hit this, I believe it doesn't save it. So it says save file and say okay. Okay, so now that it's saved, we want to check first for center, and then after that we'll check for rotation. So to check for center, we want to see if we hooped it off center. So remember, the machine always defaults at the beginning of a design, it always defaults to the hoops center. In other words, if I were to put this hoop template on that came with the machine, the regular flat one, this needle, number 1, would default to the center of the hoop template. And of course it is. It's right there. But my design template is not in the center of this hoop template because I hooped it crookedly or off center a little bit. I can see. And let me get you down closer so you can see. You can see my crosshair on this design template is up here, and the hoop template is down here. So I hooped crookedly. So just by having this design, or just by having this hoop template on, I could see that the needle, you know, which is defaulting on the hoop template, this needle needs to be moved up about 2 mils or whatever. It's not going to show me how much I'm moving it, and I wish it did, so that, you know, we know then if we had to X out and bring it back up, we would know that we moved it to, you know, 2 mils or whatever. But this program doesn't, this software doesn't tell you that. So, but anyways, so I know I have to move it up. Do I have to move it right or left? Probably not. Maybe I can move it. It looks like it doesn't need to be moved right or left. And, you know, I'm going to dial down once I move it up. So while it's just here like this, I'll try to hold the camera. I'm going to take these jog buttons and I'm going to move it up. So I'm going to hit this up arrow. And you'll watch, it'll look like the needle is moving up. Let me go on an angle maybe. Well, I don't know how to get it good. I'll just have to dial down and show you. So I'm going to hit the up arrow, and so I hit it like 10 times. Like, this barely moves. So now what you're seeing is that the needle, there's glare. You can't really see. I can though. But the needle is up a little bit. The carriage moved forward, which made it look like the needle moved up. And remember, wherever the needle is, that's where the design is. So the needle moved up, hence the design moved up. But is it up far enough? Let me go see. I'm going to put this back on. And, whoops. I'm going to take the hand wheel and dial it towards me as I'm pushing this down, this needle bar down. Okay, so I'm looking from the side, and it looks like now I don't want to be on this template. Let me take the template off. I don't want to be on this crosshair because this is where it defaults to. This is when you hoop perfectly. So we'll take that off. I want to be on this crosshair, so let me go down again. Okay, let me look from the side. So my needle is it's going to give me a warning first, but I'm going to go down 2 or 3. Needle bars out of alignment. So you have to hit OK. Okay, so I'll just go like that again. So I'm going to go back down just... Did I say it was up too high? I can't remember now. I just went down 2 clicks. So I'm good vertically. I believe I did need to come, my needle needed to come to the right. So I'm going to hold right here with my fingernail and dial down again. And I'm going to look at it. Yeah, my needle could go to the right maybe 5 clicks. So that's like a 1/2 mil, I think. So, and it's going to give me a warning, so I'm going to press this right button to make the needle go to the right. So the carriage is going to move to the left, but it's going to make it look like the needle is going to the right. So don't even think of the carriage. Just say, we're pressing these buttons to move the needle. That's what you want to say to yourself. So we're moving the needle to the right. Okay, needle bar. Every time you push it down, you get that warning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Didn't even seem like it moved. So I'm going to take it now and push it down, and then I'm dialing it with the hand wheel. Yeah, it didn't even move. I'm just going to go like that. I dialed it backwards. So I'm going to hit the right button. That's weird that it didn't give me a warning. Maybe because I dialed it back. I don't know. I'm going to dial it towards me again. Okay, it's right on. I don't know if you can see that, but it is right. Yeah, you probably can't see. But that needle is right in the center of my crosshair. Maybe if I tilt it a little. In both directions. So, I'm good. Now, I'm going to check for rotation. So, I'm going to, when I hit the fast forward button to fast forward through this first object, which is the crosshair, it'll give me a warning. So I don't think it'll puncture my vinyl. So let's just see. But before I do any fast forwarding, I just want to point out that on this screen, the entire design is showing because this is the icon that's active. If you want to see what's currently going to stitch, the object that's currently going to stitch, or the color that's currently going to stitch, you can press this, and this will move to highlighting this. So now you can see the crosshair is going to stitch. And it's also highlighted down here with a red box around it. It's just a coincidence that the color is red too. But so anyways, so that's going to stitch, and that's what we want to trace is the crosshair to check if we hooped crookedly in this manner, you know, rotating wise. So I'm going to hit this fast forward button to fast forward through this crosshair and see if my needle is going to follow the crosshair. So when I hit this, okay, good, it gave me this warning. Oh, it did puncture it. I kind of thought it might because it was in the fabric almost. Oh, darn it. I'm starting this crosshair on this side. I normally don't do that. I normally have switched something, but that's okay. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit more. Okay. So let me just dial down a little and see if I'm on. So I am... My needle, God, it's almost right on. I would say it's 1 mil or 1/2 mil below the crosshair. So here's the crosshair, the horizontal part of it. And if the needle were a spinner, the needle over here would be like this, which means on this side, it would be above. So you want to think of your needle as a spinner. So if over here, the needle is below the crosshair, that would tell me that I'm probably going to be rotating the needle, hence the design, counterclockwise, to get it to be on my crosshair. Because remember, my crosshair in this template represents where I want to stitch my design. So I want the needle to be following where I want my design stitched, darn it. So I am going to assume that since the needle is like this down here, it's going to be above once I get over here. So let's just see, and I'll leave that like that. And when I fast forward through it, it's going to probably give me a warning, I think. Did I have the needle? I did dial down, yeah. Yeah, so there's my warning, hit OK. Okay, now I can click it down. And I'll fast forward to the other side. So remember that my pen is moving. My pen is like this, so I'm assuming this is going to be above my crosshair. And it doesn't look like it is. So, let me see. No. It actually looks like it's right on. So, here's what I'm thinking. My red crosshair is down here, but then I had to draw over it because I ran out of red marker when I was printing this with my Cricut Maker, and my black one is up higher. So, was I looking at the wrong one down there? Because it looks like I'm right on and I don't have to rotate. Yeah, my red line is down lower. My black one is up higher. So, I probably should follow the red one. And the red one is right on. Kind of wished I would have had to rotate it. It's right on. So, I was looking at the black line because I tried to draw over the red line. I probably didn't draw it straight. So, let me rewind. I don't know why it does that sometimes. if you hold it down, you know, long, it goes like 100 stitches instead of just, whoops, I'm rewinding. So let me see now, let me make sure that I'm looking at the red one. Yeah, I'm right on. I can't believe I didn't rotate this. I mean, it wasn't easy to hoop. So, and I think on my last video, I didn't have to rotate. So I gotta stop hooping so well. With my root system, I do hoop pretty darn good. So let's just pretend like it was rotated. Let's pretend like, you know, it was what I said and that the needle was like this. The needle was lower than the crosshair. Well, if that's true, and then that means it would have been above the crosshair over here. So that means then that we have to go into Menu, Edit. Once we go into this screen, we cannot use the jog buttons anymore, because any more jogging we would do then would compound on top of the jogging we already did. Because remember, the jogs that we did are saved in this edit screen already. We didn't even know it was saved, but it is. So, and if you come to this screen, so we're going to hit Menu and then the Edit icon. You might be able to tell, and you can kind of tell that my crosshair looks so thick. Well, that's because I moved the design. I moved the needle. I moved it like up and to the right or something. And so I think the original crosshair for this screen is red as well. So I think that's why this looks so thick. But at any rate, just know that the jogs we did are showing right here. And they're saved. So now we're pretending like my needle was down here, which meant we have to rotate the needle counterclockwise. So we hit this button here for rotating, and we're going counterclockwise, so that's this button here. This one's clockwise, this is counterclockwise. And when I hit it down here, okay, it went to 359. And that's because if you think about it, the reason why it went to 359, if you think about it, we rotated it counterclockwise. So normally, positionally, the design was at like 0 or 360, however you want to think of it. So horizontal is 0, and positionally it can be rotated 360 degrees. So when, and that, if you notice, when I did that, I went clockwise. Here's 1 degree, 2, 3. So it's rotating clockwise to 360, and it's back here. So this same position is 0 or 360. Well, when we go backwards 1 degree, we go from 360 to 359. If we would have went forward, in other words, clockwise, if we would have rotated it clockwise, you would have seen a 1 degree down here. It would have went like that, and you would have seen a 1, and I'll show you. So I'll go clockwise. It took me to 0, and if I go clockwise again, so 0 is positionally like that, and now clockwise again, it's showing it went 1 degree. So depending on which way you go, you know, you're going to see a big number or a little number. Now, if your design is so huge and if your design is really big and you hooped really badly, meaning you got to rotate it a lot, say you have to rotate it like 5 degrees, you may not be able to. And I'll just show you here. Let's just say I had to rotate it clockwise another one. So it's 2, 3, 4, 5, it's still going, 6, 7. Okay, my design is letting me. And the reason why it's letting me go 1 degree at a time is because I made sure that my designs are at least a ½ inch smaller than the hoop, the boundaries of the hoop. If you just make your design like a ½ inch smaller than the hoop, you may not be able to rotate it as much as you need to. And what'll happen is you'll be on like 5 degrees or whatever, and instead of it going another degree to 6 degrees, it completely flips like 90 degrees. And you'll be like, what the heck happened? Well, that's because the design couldn't go 1 more degree because it was going to hit up here. So just know that try to make your designs at least a ½ inch smaller than your hoop boundaries. So I'm going to rotate back. Okay, because I didn't need to rotate. But remember, since I'm in this screen, that's it. When I hit OK, you know, I can't come back and say, oh, you know, I need to jog some more. And believe me, you're going to think that, because guess what? When you come back to the Ready to Sew screen, your needle goes back to the hoop center, this hoop center. It'll go back to there. And, you know, and you may notice that, and you may be like, oh my God, I'm not in the center anymore. But you are. You are in the center, because remember, your jog buttons were saved on the edit screen. And if you fast forward through your crosshair, you'll see that you're still right on it. Everything is fine. And I'll just show you. It looks like my needle is down here, where my crosshair is up here, the center of my crosshair. But as I fast forward through the crosshair, let me press this, the crosshair here, if I fast forward through it, you'll see this jog up and then over, because it's starting here. You may see that. I don't know if you'll see it. Let me see if you'll be able to see it jog. I'll try that angle. Okay, I'm going to fast forward through this. So I don't know if you saw that. It kind of moved just a hair, but it moved up. So that reminds you that, oh yeah, okay, my jog settings are saved in the menu screen, okay? So just Just remember that. Don't let it trick you. So we know we're good. We're good. So now we're just going to fast forward through the thread color. So we don't have to worry now about fast forwarding through the stitches. We're going to fast forward to our next thread color, which is our design. And, you know, we're going to just go ahead and stitch it. But while the thing is over there, I'm going to take this off. It'll be easier. Okay, so now this, I think I taped it here in the center only. And it looks like I forgot to trim this. Silly me. So this is stuck under in my hoop. So I'm going to have to trim that for the next one. I messed up. So let me pull these up. I'm going to hold my thumb down because remember my tape is still sticky even though I flanneled it. Okay. So I really messed up there. And this one in the center, I'm going to hold my finger. Okay. So we're good. So now I'm going to fast forward through the thread color. It's coming pretty close to my table. I got lucky there. So now what I'm going to do is pull up my bobbin thread. Now let me make sure my thread is good because I got a new check spring assembly and I tested it and I'm actually trying it a little bit tighter. My last time I did it, I think this was at 180 or something, and I kind of wanted it to be at 200 and 200 grams with the Tajima. So I got a new check spring assembly here. So all of these are replaced, and I did test them, but right now I believe I still have it on 9, and I still have it, let me make sure. I have it wrapped 1.5 times, and I have it on 9, but that gives me 210. So, and that was weird because then down to 8 gave me 160. That's a big drastic drop. That tells you that your thread is probably very irregular. So instead of being at 9, I'm going to go at 8.5 and just wing it. Maybe I'll get 200. But I'm only going to go a little bit. And then I'm going to take my fingernail and test my tension on the top and the bottom. I'm checking for those pokies, you know, like railroad tracks, because you don't want that. And again, my check spring on number 1, needle 1 is at its lowest. This black little Allen wrench thingy, I didn't touch those. And my bobbin is still at 100 millinewtons, which is about 10 grams or 9.8 grams or something like that. Or the other way around, I can't remember. It might be at 98 millinewtons. So I just kind of round it. So, and that's with the digital TOA, remember. My bobbin, I use the digital TOA. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is pull up my bobbin thread, but I have my needle down there and it's probably going to warn me. Now, since I went to the second thread color, it is starting at the first stitch of that second color. And that's the beauty of fast forwarding to the next thread color. You're right there at the first stitch of that color. So I'm going to grab my thread and I'm going to pull the tension lever back and pull out a lot of thread so I can put my finger here. You can't see. So I've got my finger on the hoop and I'm going to press start once. Pull tension, and I'm going to get a warning there, I think. I'm not sure. But I'm going to press it once. Machine starts to run. So now I got to press the start button twice very fast. Okay, that brought up the bobbin thread. So I pulled up on the top thread and there's my bobbin thread. So I'll be burying this later. So I've got them both held over here tight. The bobbin thread is flat. The top thread is at an angle, but I have it pressed up against the hoop here. And I'm going to press start. Get a warning, and now I press it once. Ah! Oh, that's not good. Oh well. I'll just put that out of the way. Okay, so I ripped those stitches out and I did adjust my tension. I'm kind of messing around with the tension a little bit. So I'm going to see, I got it to be a little bit tighter on top. And I'm going to see how it goes this time. Since I had to rip out those stitches, I re-hooped. And since I'm re-hooped, I don't know if I'm in the center this time because, you know, it's holding the centering from the last hooping. So this is why we saved it to the RCS unit from the very start so that we don't have to assign our needles again. So I X'd out of the design, and now I'm going to pull it up from the RCS unit. So we're going to go open. RCS unit is right here. It's in this folder. And what did I call it? M1. I thought these were alphabetical. M1 swirl, no backtrack. Okay. So there's my needles. They're assigned. I'll hit this button. We're on the crosshair. And I can see that my needle needs to go up. So I'm just going to do this real quick. I'm going to go up. So now I'll hold this. I'll hold it with my thumb this time. And get a warning, not 2 times. And there's my bobbin thread. Hold it with my thumb. And I'll once, and then now just once. Did the same thing this time. Oh well. That's okay. So I'm going to let it just lay over there. Yeah, that looks good. I'm happy with that. I'll tell you what I did. It's really outlandish what I did. I just needed more tension. This thread is so thin and it offers no resistance. I'm going to have to try to find a better thread that offers some roughness. Now, the thread that's in needle number 2, it's a blue thread. It is also Coats & Clark, and I know Coats & Clark is not that great a thread, but you almost want a rough thread for something like this because you need the resistance and the tension discs to pull up this quilting. Because when you're quilting in the hoop, the top is what's doing all the work. The bobbin doesn't have to do as much work. The top has to pull that bobbin thread to the middle, and it's hard for the top to do that. When you're doing regular embroidery and the bobbin is just pulling all the threads to the back, well, that's easy for the bobbin because it's just coming from there, going up, and that's it. I mean, you know, so what I did, and I'll show you when this gets done. Oh, this is so much better. So this is about 200 grams of pull on the top and 100 millinewtons or 10 grams in the bobbin. I think it's more like 210 on top, but you know, it fluctuates. So that is going to have to be my formula on this machine. 200. Okay, that was the jump, and it made 2 stitches here. So see, I have a long thread here, so I can bury this long thread. Well, it's from here to there. It's like 4 inches. That's enough to bury. And the bobbin thread will be just as long underneath. But here's what I did. First of all, the pretensioner is wrapped not just halfway, but around again. So 1.5 times. And then I took an old spring from my old unit, because I have another one of this top thing with the pretensioners. I took the spring from that one, and I took the old discs from that one, because I noticed that the older discs offer more roughness. They're a little bit rougher, and I kind of wanted that. I need more tension. So I took the other spring. I have 2 springs down in here, 2 of them. So I put one down, and I put the other one. It's those beehive-looking springs. And then I've got the old tension disc in here. And that right there gave me more tension. I had it wrapped 1.5 times before I did all this. And it wasn't giving me the tension. And it's so weird because yesterday it was giving me tension. I don't know if I was measuring it wrong or if I was just on a thicker part of the thread, since it is Coats & Clark thread. You know, it's probably irregular. So I am not sure, but that was my fix. And that gave me about 210 grams on 9. So if I start losing tension after this, I don't know what I'll do. But we'll just cross that bridge when we come to it. Maybe the tension assembly that I got is loose on this needle number 1. You know, they do have a little nut in there and a little screw when you take this off. And, but I don't want to mess with it. I mean, I was nervous doing this. Well, this was nothing. I just put a spring in there. So, and it's just so weird because I was getting good tension with the old check spring. The old check springs that were in here. And I wonder if it's because those old check springs were getting hard and brittle and offering me more tension. I don't know. I don't know. So, but it's beautiful. It really came out well. Let's see if I can focus on it. Oh, and look, I see some dots. I see a dot there. That means it's pulling the bobbin thread up, but that's okay. It'll relax. I mean, it's not too tight up here. I can pull these threads, you can see. That was just in a couple spots like that. These over here are fine. So let's look at the back. So now, just so you know, I thought that I would, you know, as I start going with this, I thought that I would take it off the hoop and just lay it on this table here and work with it on the table. The camera's in the way now, but, you know, I would do my next hooping like right here. I wouldn't have to go and take this over to my other table or anything. I could bury my threads here, and then after the threads are buried, you know, keep it in the hoop, bury my threads. After the threads are buried, I could tape. Let's see, how does this go? I mean, this is the same template. It's slightly different, and I wanted to mention that too, but I could just put this on here, you know, and try to match up the stitching, but that kind of takes the fun out of it. I like having a clear one, so I'm probably going to break down and either stitch on clear plastic or try to print another one. I really need to get more Sharpie markers because I messed up that other template because I went over it with the black, and so I don't even know which crosshair to follow now. So anyways, but whatever template you have, hopefully a clear one, you can match it up and put it on after you bury your threads. And so this will be on, and then you can remove it from the hoop. Remove this from the hoop, and then hoop your next design, which for me now is going to be, it's going to be this one here. But as you recall, I have to redo the cutout for that one. So, okay, so let me turn it over just so we could see the back at least. And the back looks great. Oh, thank God. I'm so glad I fixed that. I was worried about that. And see, here's our bobbin thread. So that will get buried. And then the beginning knot is here. Both of those threads are at the top. And when I pull on the top threads, that'll even get smaller. If I take both top threads and kind of pull on them, you could see that got even smaller. And so let me get close here. Boy, that's crazy. I can't get that. It's hard to get the lighting just right. I think you can see it there. And so there's no railroad tracks. You know, everything looks good. So I don't really like that I can pull on them, but I mean, it's making a pucker, like it's making a bubble here, so it's pulled together. I'm almost afraid to make the bobbin tighter because, let's see. I don't want to have railroad tracks down here. The bobbin is tighter than the top. So that right there, you know, because as I pull my finger, so if the bobbin is tighter than the top, if I make this bobbin any tighter, I think I will start to have a straight line here. Because if we were to say, oh, well, it's tight here because the top's pulling it, well, I don't think so because the top is looser. I don't think that's what's happening. So, now the other thing is, you know, with batting, here's something interesting to think about. Okay. When you put your batting on, you always have the soft dimples facing up. So it is spongier. You know, it's spongier on top. Whereas it's stiffer on the back of your batting. So, you know, that's another consideration. That can play a small role in this. Okay, so I was able to create another template with the hole in it. And basically what I did was I used the same nested block, but I placed the digital file, you know, on top of it, and I had a this outline here that I'm going to actually, stitch around it, which I did up here. That's how I cut the hole. So that was like 4 millimeters from the edge, outside edge of the satin is how I made this pentagon. So, and that's what I cut the hole with. Now in Mb4s, you can't cut a hole with outlines, or what they call, in Inkscape it would be called a stroke. In Mb4, you have to use your guidelines, so you have to rotate your guidelines and cut with the guidelines. So it's a little harder. Now, I believe on one of them that I made a mistake on, I actually took it into Inkscape and I let this pentagon cut the path of these, and then I brought the whole thing back into Mb4 Studio. That's what's great about Mb4 Studio. You can work with Bezier curves. You can import them in. Bezier curves are what they use in vector objects. But I didn't do that on this one. I actually cut it with the guidelines in Mb4 Studio. But just to make a point, I used this nested block because this is the block that I'm basing everything on. So I'm nesting with this size and everything. So I used this one, put the pentagon on top, cut out the hole, and then connected them all in Mb4 Studio. And then it'll stitch just like that one now. And then it'll be a final outline. I'm not even going to bother with trying to do a blanket stitch because I think I pretty much know how to get it good now. So I will try to get my centers, although when you flip this up, you can see, like, the horizontal guideline is just above the bottom edge of this satin. So it's kind of hard to even see my origin. I'm more interested in tracing that other pentagon that I have on the edge of the satin border, because those are the 2 points that I'm going to put the needle down in and make sure that I'm here and here. If I'm here and here on that pentagon, then I know I'm good to go. Then I'll just stitch the design. And then after this is done, then it'll be easy. I'm just going to stitch this one here, and then I really don't have any more room to stitch on the sides. So now, after I stitch this one, then put this one over here, then I add on to my top and my backing. And I have to decide which way I'm going to go on here. So that'll be exciting. And, I still may add applique, but I kind of thought about it and I thought, I don't really want to have a lot of applique going on because then I'll have to put a lot of applique. So I may put these two, since I already have them done, I may put these two intermittently through the quilt, and that could be my applique. I don't know. I thought about putting an embroidery design here and here instead of well, not instead of, but before I would have quilted this, you know, put an embroidery design, or I could have put a like a red work type of quilting in here instead of this, but I just opted for this, and I think I've got enough on my plate right now. But this is coming along nicely. I'm very happy with it.